on, everybody? It's a typical, Oregon March day, except for the fact that today we're gonna be going fishing, right? You can hear the rain, but about another 100 feet of elevation, it's snow. Like, all the cars driving by right now are white. And I'm thinking the spot that I'm wanting to fish should be white snow, so that'd be really cool. Today we're gonna be fishing it on the spike, so the flows are up about 700 CFS in the last overnight. We had rain, but usually where I'm going, fish is pretty clear consistently. I'm fishing an inlet to a lake, and yeah, we got snow on the ground right now. Not a lot, like just a dusting, but it looks cool. So we're gonna be fishing some cold conditions as part of fishing in Oregon. But yeah, so I don't really know I'm mainly just gonna be throwing my typical bobber gear, chase the drain, but so I don't know what we're gonna be experiencing in terms of like if we're gonna hook into fish. Fishing for trout, and I've caught some really nice ones out of here. I went in December of 24 out here, and it was high, rainy, not great conditions, and it produced a couple of really nice fish. So we're gonna, my goal is to catch a couple. We can fish above and below. Below is gonna be low and dirty, just going off the flows, but nonetheless, we're gonna give it a shot. I'm really hoping there's snow up here, because that's one of my bucket list things to do, is go fish in the snow. And so, fingers crossed we got some snow up here. We have some on the trees right now. So, I think as we continue to gradually incline in elevation, we should have some more and more snow. But yeah, so that's the agenda for today. We're gonna throw bobber beads for these trout, and hopefully we get onto a couple. Snow. Pushing it most of the time. We should be getting down in it. And I don't think. Now this hole I've caught a handful of fish out of in the last couple casts, and the thing I've noticed is it took a matter of switching colors. I was running orange to start with, and that was working, and then couldn't get any bites, and then I switched to like a purple almost, and now I've got this like 14 mil kind of bubblegum pink kind of, and that was the difference maker, was switching to that. Oh my gosh. So late now. So adding off of what I was saying though, like I think switching, like don't be afraid to try different things, right? Like you could get to your spot and be like, oh, last time I was here, you know, green was the color, or red, whatever it is, right? I would say you could start off with what you've had confidence with, and it may be like that spot is just really good with one color. But then again, I would also recommend, you know, be flexible, like try different colors, like try different water, different depth, different pace. Oh my gosh. I think this little slower stuff might be better. Alright, I'm going to walk through kind of what I was using today. You guys probably didn't see me fish this as much. This is my bobber dog setup. This is the bead that was kind of doing it all today. It was this kind of brighter pink one. This setup is probably one of my favorites for sure on creeks and rivers, faster water. Addicted does a really good tutorial on how to bobber dog, so I highly recommend checking that out. But this setup, only downside is you can't fish in slow water. And today, the fish were more in like the deeper pockets, so this wasn't as successful. I missed probably 5 or 6 on it, and that was my bad, but it works. It's definitely something I would use a lot. Now, in both of these steps I'm going to show you are steps I would run for steelhead on any given day. These are both my bead setups for, you know, your typical cloudy water, fishing for fish that are going to be pretty tight to the bottom. And yeah, so this is my Akuma Guide Select 9.3. This is probably one of those well-rounded rod setups. It was at Costco on sale, so had to get it. It's 817 pounds, I believe. Yeah, 817 pounds, super light tip. So you can side drift if you really wanted, but it's got the backbone to handle a pretty decent sized fish. So from the top, I'll show you guys what I was running. Okay. Something that you can, I don't know if you see in front of my hoodie, there's a bobber stop. This is, so I run this double bobber stop. Yeah, it's got like a black and then your typical thread one. The black is just gonna really be like your insurance policy that, you know, you're constantly at the same depth that you want to be fishing at. And then from there, I run small bead. So really from the start, tie a blood knot. I have 20-pound mono to 50-pound braid. The fish aren't going to break your braid. That's just to keep your line floating. Then you go to your bobber stops, black and your green. I like green. You can go orange, pink, whatever you want, really. Doesn't matter. Then I run a small bead. Hopefully, I think you guys can see that with the blue. And that small red bead. That's just so it doesn't slide over your bobber stops. And that corky's going to tell you whether or not your float's fishing. That's going to tell you, because if your hook's wrapped around your weight, it'll be sitting and kind of down off to the side like that, but just tighter to the float. So basically, if it's sitting upright like this, that's how you know you're tight to your weight, which is good. So then this is the elevated ½ ounce, 3/4 ounce bobber dog and float. I like the heavier float just because it wasn't a big difference between the small one, and I found myself fishing the Mackenzie and William River, which are both bigger bodies of water, so I think this will probably play a lot more successful. And then, so off of that float, I have another small, it's probably 8mm bead, I think, right there, that runs to your 3-way swivel. Off of that, I have some pencil lead. I highly encourage having multiple pieces and sizes of pencil lead, because you just never know what the flows are going to be in particular runs, so having different variations helps a lot. So down to the business end of things, 2.5 to 3 foot leader is kind of my general rule of thumb. You can run a double bead setup and run, a 2 foot and a 18-inch leader, and have 2 different presentations, work in both different waters, and like you have like a 16 to a 14 or a 14 to a 12 or 2 14s, 2 16s, 2 12s, whatever you want. 1 orange, 1 pink. That's going to just set you up for success there. Having just 2 different presentations in the water column makes a world of a difference. Forgot to mention, so this is I believe this is an elevated cluster, 16mm for trout. I would not fish a 16mm cluster. You guys saw I missed a bunch of fish today, but they're keen in on this color, and this size just stood big in the water, which I liked. Now, today was one of the first days I was fishing. This is the Addicted Mustad bead hook, size 1. Size 1 or size 2 I'd recommend. I went with size 1 just because that's kind of what I've had confidence in other hooks, which they've held up. That's my dog. Which they've held up really well, all things considered. Now, transitioning from that to my inline, Fluger President 3000 series. I'd say probably 3,000 to 4,000 is your ideal. Kuma SST 9'6". This is like your standard float rod. You could swing spinners, you could side drift, you could do just about anything with this setup. But yeah, 8-17 pounds, really awesome rod, not expensive, and I've had no issues with them breaking on me at all. Similar thing. So 40 to 50 pound braid. I like high vis so I can see my line where it's at. Helps me know when to mend. Off of that, 20-pound bumper to the braid. And then same thing, you're gonna run that double bobber stop. You'll have your black to your thread, whatever one you want. Off of that, small bead. That's what's gonna make sure it doesn't slide over your bobber stop. Your corky's gonna tell you whether or not your float is tangled or if you're actually fishing. So you want to be sitting generally, upright like that. That's what you're looking for. That means you're fishing correctly. So I'm fishing a ½ ounce. I know guys that fish 5/8, 7/8, kind of whatever you want. ½ ounce has worked really well for me for majority of the fishing that I'm doing. It's pretty clear water, and I try and keep a pretty small profile as much as I can. But off of that, I have another small bead, right there to a 1/2 ounce weight. This is 16-pound fluorocarbon. Now this is something I've been trying. It's definitely a newer thing to me, but my buddies do it and they've had a lot of success with it. So 16-pound fluorocarbon, probably about 2.5 feet, down to a split shot. Now you can kind of vary how big you want your split shot. Today's water is pretty big and pretty fast in certain runs, or just big enough to where I want to get down as fast as I can. So to that I tie so you got your split shot, double barrel swivel. So your float, you should some version of float, setup, inline weight, some leader down to a split shot, double barrel swivel. And then off of that is where I have my bead leader. So from my double barrel swivel, right there, yeah, probably 3 feet down to a bead. Similar setup. These are the oh gosh, I think so. I believe these are the Clear Drift bead stops. I personally like the BNR because then once my bead slides over, I struggle a lot to get the bead back over the T-stop. So this is a BNR 14 mil orange creamsicle bead to a Clear Drift T-stop, and then also as well it's going to pair up with that Mustad addicted bead hook. So the idea of this is you have your bobber stop set up probably, like if you know a hole is going to be at least 2 feet deep all the way through, I'd set my bobber stop to probably 1.5 feet, and then let this split shot do all the work. Let that take bottom the whole way through. So you know your gear's down low in it, and then you got your bead set up obviously. But the idea is, if all this does snag up, whatnot, you're not going to lose your float and your inline weight, which are your probably 2 more expensive things on the setup. Those are the setups I was running today, and trout and steelhead, I would say just try not to overcomplicate. Like, you can make it pretty complicated if you do too much, and I think you just gotta remember, like, steelhead are trout that went to the ocean, and I think if you kind of keep it pretty similar in what you do between trout and steelhead, you'll have success both ways. The pattern, like what works really good for me for trout, tends to be pretty successful for steelhead and vice versa. But yeah, I fished these for steelhead a week ago, and then I went out today with the exact same setups and got onto trout like pretty consistently. But I would say have some orange pinks, some clear orange, clear pink beads. You don't need too many, but like I like to have kind of an assortment to try out different things. And if some fish are seeing the same thing over and over and over again, sometimes it's nice to have one that stands out, bigger, smaller. But you don't need 30 different beads to go catch fish, right? Like, I fished 4 beads today. All caught fish, but one worked better than the other. And yeah, so I would say keep it simple and have like confidence, or go into your holes with something you're confident with, and then from there, differentiate your gear. And I tried to explain that earlier while I was on the water, but when you get to these certain runs, you're gonna have fishing. You're gonna be fishing, and it's gonna be like, last week it was pinks were hitting, and you haven't had a single bite running with pink. That doesn't mean you should just keep running pink all day. That's where I would switch up to like orange, or red, or purple, whatever it is, to give the fish a different look, because clearly they don't want the color they wanted a week before. And sometimes there's like certain rivers. I was trying to explain this earlier. I don't know if I made it clear, but there's certain rivers that are like one color dominates all the way through. There's some rivers where it's day by day it changes. There's some days where pinks, oranges, reds, different ones, different times, different scents, different holes within the river. So I would say have some version of gear that you can switch up to, having 2-3 different scents, 4 or 5 different kind of beads, couple of jigs. I think that's a really good start, especially for steelhead, but even trout. Like, highly recommend go to Addicted and watch their tutorials, because they're some of the best fishermen around here, and they get put on fish almost every time they go out. So most of the stuff is stuff that I've just watched as they've gone fishing as much as they have. But so yeah, these were the setups I was running. Caught fish, kept it relatively simple. I was using 1 cent and 4 different beads and caught 5, 10, 15 trout. So that was in a couple hours of fishing. So I would say keep it simple, but float fishing, it's hard to beat a bobber down. So if you have the opportunity, I would go give that a chance.